Pre-game coverage starts now. This is the Fleet Farm pre-game show. It is archery deer opener tomorrow. That's on Saturday. Get all your hunting supplies at Fleet Farm. Shop the entire selection of hunting gear from all the top brands today at Fleet Farm. Here with Menomonie Mustangs head coach Mike Sinz. Coach, before we get into this game tonight with Rice Lake, first it was an overtime thriller. You stop Hudson on a two-point conversion. You get the overtime win on the road. 37-35. What's that like early in the season to get that kind of juice early on?
It was first off, it was an awesome atmosphere environment at Hudson. They have a beautiful facility. It was a packed house. They're always good. It doesn't matter what year it is. Adam does a great job over there. And it was a huge win for our program early in the year just because of how good Hudson is every year. And when you can knock off a team like that at their place, I think it kind of says something about the resiliency of our kids, because we were down in the fourth and came back and fought back. And, we're lucky enough, or I should say fortunate enough to get the win in overtime. Just an awesome high school game. This is my 20th year coaching high school football, and it would have to be probably in the top 5 of games that I've been involved in. That's how good of a game it was.
You mentioned the high school there. I've called it for years the Taj Mahal of high schools in Wisconsin up there in Hudson. They've got that part figured out. All right, let's move to Rice Lake. We're back in conference tonight. Conference games always important, especially if you've got on the whiteboard conference championship as one of those goals. But before we get to the overall game, just tell us a little bit about your offense. And let's specifically remind everybody about your quarterback. And, it's a guy that gets his name called a lot. So tell us who you've got calling the signals coming up tonight.
Yeah, the last 2 years, Brady Johnson's been our quarterback. He's done an unbelievable job. Last year, I think it was 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, leader of our offense, obviously, as a quarterback. This year, he's had an excellent start. I think he threw for over 300 in the first half against Marshfield in 5 touchdowns. So again, he's just had a hot start to the year. He's put so much time in. It's good to see that all pay off because he's gone to so many camps and 7-on-7 tournaments and leagues with our kids and it's good to see it pay off. And I know that he'd be the first guy to say the offensive line has played extremely well too. Obviously he's been able to throw some pretty good athletes on the perimeter, and that obviously helps out. But again, Brady knows he's the leader of our offense. We go as he goes, and it's been a great start to the year for him.
I happened to be on the field for your week 1 game, and I saw those qualities right there from the field. You mentioned the offensive line. Tell us about the big guys up front and what they do for your running game.
Yeah, it's been we didn't know about our offensive line at the beginning of the year, to be honest with you. We graduated 4 out of 5 starters. Our only returner was Bryce Shepard. He's a junior. He's a captain for us. This is his 3rd year starting, which is really hard to do at a big school. Started as a freshman for us a couple years ago. He's done an exceptional job leading that group, and I feel like they're getting better, game in and game out. And I think the sky's the limit for him, to be honest. And it's great to see it because that's like its own little team, and those guys love each other, and it's like their own family. I think a lot of offensive lines will say that, and offensive line coaches. So again, they, getting better every week. That will help our team. And, we're not the biggest crew up front. This isn't like a Menomonie team. When I was a player here and a coach earlier in my career, we're, 190, 185, 215 at center, I think. And then we're 230, 255. Like, we're not huge, but our guys are all pretty athletic and can move up front.
Talking to Menomonie Mustangs head coach Mike Sinz as we get ready for tonight's game against Rice Lake. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Who are 1 or 2 of those guys that really get everybody stirred up and get ready to go on the defensive end?
Yeah, I would say, on the back end, I would say Ray Pember. This is his 3rd year starting at free safety for us. He's a leader. He's a captain, senior leader for us. He's great at checking everything in the back end. Him and actually Hayden Weir too. Hayden Weir's kind of our utility guy. He's a senior, started last year also as a junior. In the middle, we started 3 different guys. We started Cage Sorensen, his 2nd year playing at Mike for us and Will, and he leads our team in tackles. He's an exceptional player also. And then DJ Butler's a sophomore. He starts for us. He's a guy to keep an eye on in the future. Hard worker, does everything right. And then Anthony Sackery is another senior leader, captain. And then our front is kind of, we try to get as many guys snaps as we can to keep them fresh because we have so many of those guys that are offensive linemen for us. And then I would say Brody Thornton, he's a young man committed to North Dakota on a scholarship for football. He's last week against Hudson, I think he had 15 tackles, 2 batted balls. He had a block field goal to win the game. He blocked that. I mean, he's a dude. He's 6'4", about 220, and he can move. And he's just a great young man, another captain for us. So again, kind of by committee, but we do have a couple guys that are pretty dang good football players, and it's a great group to have overall.
Through 3 games, you scored 35 in week 2, 37 with the additional period in week 3. Are those the kind of offensive numbers that you're comfortable with? And is that what needs to happen from this point going forward?
Yeah, even week 1, I think we won 22-19 if I remember correctly, and we were to be honest with you, we just didn't play. We felt like we didn't play well that game. We had 2 fumbles. We shot ourselves in the foot. I think we've punted 3 times this year. Again, we feel like we can get better and better week in and week out. And our offense is going to have to play well tonight because Rice Lake is they're ranked number 1 and they're number 1 for a reason. So again, we're young, but we just got to keep improving every day.
Against Hudson, you gave up 270 plus yards on the ground. Rice Lake comes in tonight averaging over 330 yards rushing per game. How many sleepless nights this week will you have, and how many did you have, and how do you go about planning for that type of ground attack?
Yeah, well, you can tell probably by my voice, I haven't gotten a lot of sleep, and I'm tired and under the weather, to be honest with you, but they are – I'm not just saying this as coach speak, but they are so good. Like, you better play disciplined football against Rice Lake. They've run the flex bone for, I would say, probably 30 years. Since I was in high school, they've run this flex bone with Coach Pottinger and now Coach Hill, and they do it about as well as anybody in the state of Wisconsin. And they're well coached. They're big up front. Their line is 280, I think like 270, maybe 290. And they're just huge for a school of 700 kids. They have their athletes they have and their size. It's just mind-boggling how good they are. And again, like I said, we're gonna have to play disciplined football because the Peters kid at fullback is unreal, and then Durand, and then their quarterback number 2, or they have guys all over the field.
You get to play this one at home. You actually end the year 3 out of 4 on the road, so you got to cherish these home games when you have them, and you have it tonight. Is that an advantage when you get to play in your own home field?
I think it is. We always tell our guys once the ball's kicked, it's just a football game. But obviously, if I had a choice of going up to Rice Lake or playing this game in Menomonie at Williams Stadium, I'm going to pick Menomonie, 100 times out of 100. So it's nice playing at home. Like I said, it's an advantage maybe a little bit, but football is kind of different than other sports. It's not like, I would say, like basketball where you're so close to the court and the fans maybe make even more of a difference. Again, it's football. It's just another game, and I know they probably think the same way.
Lastly, Coach, as we wrap up here talking to Menomonie Mustangs head coach Mike Sinz, you talked about your conference and the goal of a conference championship, and I understand this is just one game that's in the way towards getting that conference championship. Is this a must-win, or is your conference tough enough where teams are going to kind of divvy up losses between themselves, and you can make up ground if you did happen to drop one along the way?
Yeah, again, coach speak, we take it one game at a time. Our league is so loaded. I said this at the beginning of the year too. Anybody can win our league. You saw it last week. Chippewa, I saw Chippewa in person play Eau Claire Memorial, and Chippewa they are phenomenal. And then I saw the score that New Richmond went to Chippewa and won. I think it was like 32-7 or something. I'm not sure of the exact score. And then it gets you thinking, like, how good is New Richmond if they went to Chippewa and won that, with that score? So our league is from top to bottom. Like, you better bring your A game every week or else you're going to get beat. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Hudson, strung together 4 wins in a row because they are a dang good football club. So, yeah, I don't know. The BRC, this is as tough as I've seen it since probably 2015, to be honest with you.
Coach, you got a test tonight. It's the Rice Lake Warriors kick-up coming up. Good luck tonight, Coach.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and you think about all the different techniques he's got to have in his repertoire, right? All the arrows in his quiver, and he's got all of them here today.
I mean, medium well. Do you want it rare? Special orders, pickles, no pickles, ketchup, no ketchup.
You know, what we're seeing here, Paul, the spatula control is unreal.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where he's got absolutely no beef. He's just focused on doing his job. Yeah, I mean, without these cooks, everyone would just truly be fried.
Get more sales, more customers, more employees, more community support. Let Zaleski Sports help you today. Our advertising rates are less than what you have in your pocket now. People just like you watching this broadcast are your next customer or team member. Plus, you'll have the satisfaction of making sure that our light continues to shine on these student athletes. Use the phone in your hand. Email us now.
A nice controlled turn, and here comes the pontoon. What a boat.
I don't know that you can have a better activity today than the pontoon through this event. I said this is a world-class event. That was a world-class trailering of that pontoon right there.
Now we've got the green arrow, so now you got a little bit of a little. Oh! U-turn! U-turn! Oh my goodness!
U-turn? You gotta be kidding me!
It's a broadcaster's dream because we're literally in the middle of a crossing pattern.
Coverage continues now with Rice Lake Warriors head football coach Dan Hill. Coach, a tremendous start to the season, 3-0 against three Division I football teams, DC Everest, Wisconsin Rapids, and Marshfield, averaging over 40 points a game, over 300 yards on the ground in those games. What's been the key to your success through these first three games of the season?
Execution, controlling the controllables, that's always been a big thing with us. And then there's some other things like last week. I know that Marshfield lost their quarterback the game before. That always disrupts anybody's system. Those stats sound better than I think they are, but it is what it is. I mean, we're just trying to get better every day. We know that we're in an uphill battle, and we've got to keep swinging the bat at every good pitch. So, fortunately, we've been able to execute when we've needed, stay away from turnovers. And I would have said penalties until last week because neither team avoided penalties last week. That was, I know we must have set a record for the number of penalties in a game that's most I've ever seen that I've had. So got a lot of work to do cleaning that stuff up.
Let's talk about some expectations coming into the year. I mentioned the 3-0 start. A lot of the media experts have prognosticated some big things for Warriors football this year. How do you keep the kids' heads in this thing? They've got access to all this stuff nowadays. How do you?
That's frustrating for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell them, number one, I never vote on that stuff. I've only been able to watch the teams that we're going to play. I don't know how anybody could. I'm not going to vote when there's all these teams I've never seen play. I don't know how you could vote on that. So what I tell them is that's last year. I mean, they're voting based on past success, and I would wager that 90% of them have not seen us play yet this year. So try to block it out, but you're right. These kids are growing up with those phones in their hands, and they manipulate them so fast. I mean, the social media impact is unbelievable, and the part that I see that is a good thing on one way, and then it's a bad in another, is these kids are talking to the kids on the other teams. And coaches be damned trying to, hey, guys, that was, I can't even imagine doing that when I was playing, but they do it for the most part. I think that it's a friendly exchange, but sometimes you got to try and throttle it down. And guys, you got to, whatever you say and do, our program's going to be judged by it. So you got to be careful with what you're doing there.
Let's get into tonight's Big Rivers conference game. You got the Menomonie Mustangs on the other side. Of course, you're on the road over there. Let's first start with the offense. And, I mentioned some of the stats so far. Now we're into conference play, and teams get to know each other a little bit better through that, which has been around.
That's a big factor. I mean, Rice Lake and Menomonie goes back a long, long ways. They've got a lot more W's than we do. Know each other very, very well. The big challenge for us this week is we got a lot of kids sick. Everybody deals with this, but we're going through that cold flu thing that's sweeping through the team right now. Hopefully by tomorrow we're in better shape than we are now, but it's still about blocking that kind of stuff out, controlling controllables, executing your game. We try to teach and preach. It's about how well we do versus how well they do what they do. And it's, we don't control anything they do. They don't control what we do. So you gotta keep aiming for the long run and try and improve your execution every week. Stay out of the penalty and turnover game. Actually, in the turnover game, we got to get more. We're only going to be getting 2 a game. We got to try and get 4 or 5, especially against Menomonie. They're very, very hard to beat, especially at their place.
They are going to put the ball in the air, it looks like. So tell us about those turnovers and what your defense, how they can pose some problems against Menomonie when they throw the ball.
Well, the biggest thing you got to do is not break down and give them big plays. I mean, that's if you listen to us coaching football, it's number one, no big plays. You can't give up big plays and win games. You can't turn the ball over and win games. You can't have penalties and win games. So it's not so much of some key of shutting them down, but not giving them anything because your D-backs are headed the wrong way and they fool you on a play action pass and guys are wide open catching big touchdown passes and stuff like that. So it's take away the big plays, make them have to earn everything they get. And that's a lot easier said than done. They're very well coached. Their play action is very good. They get you have to cheat and try and stop the run game, and then their play action burns you. So they've got a very high football IQ in that culture over the years. It's been developed over a long period of time. They do a great job of coaching them. So it's going to be more than a challenge to take those guys on.
Coach, I see a guy like Lucas Peters. He's running for a lot of yards. He's making a lot of tackles on the defensive end. What makes him go, and how do his teammates help him go?
I mean, there's good competition in practice, but Lucas's biggest competitor is himself. He's got a high set of standards. He got a high set of goals, and he always wants to be the very best he can be at everything he does. And it rubs off on other guys, and other guys push him, and that's a kind of thing you like to have and make it be contagious. We got several guys like that. Kunis and Durand, we got a handful of those guys that were on that state championship team last year that they bring that. Their expectations are higher still. So
talking to Rice Lake Warriors head football coach Dan Hill as we begin to wrap this thing up, who are maybe 1 or 2 other names that as the season goes on, more Warriors football fans are going to become familiar with?
There's a handful of them there. Tanner Koltunski at corner has been a really, he was injured last year, but he's doing a great job for us on both sides of the ball. Another kid that may have not popped on the screen last year, but Will Swenson is another kid that's showing some different things, both sides of the ball. Again, we have all of our guys are practicing both sides of the ball. They don't play it all the time. We hope. I mean, we would love to be 2 platoon. We like to get as close to that as we can at times, but they all are playing an offensive and a defensive position. Will is one of those guys. Grant Paholke's, he's stepping in as a junior linebacker and making great progress every week. There's a bunch of guys. I mean, that's the biggest thing I would say is it's not any 1 or 2 guys. It's a collective team trying to build each other up and do the team thing the best we can.
Coach, it seems to me that the 5 on the offensive line are the most important on the field. Not only do they set the tone offensively, but they're using up clock, especially with your offense and helping the defense out. Tell us about the
I mean, we preach you got to win the line of scrimmage. If you don't win the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win much. So you're spot on that. It's the other guys you mentioned, they're the glory guys. They get the pictures in the paper, they get the touchdowns and the stats, but that offensive and defensive line, you have to win the line of scrimmage. We've got a mix of experienced guys and young guys in there, and they're pulling together and fighting, scrapping, and clawing, doing the dirty work every play, and they deserve a heck of a lot of credit.
And then lastly, Coach, just kind of talk through the first quarter of this football game against Menomonie. Aside from the scoreboard, what's got to go well in this first quarter that things are going the right way?
Yeah, traditionally they come off there's a history of them finding ways to make those big plays early and getting their energy up and getting that. And it's like you have to make sure that you don't miss something. You don't get behind the schedule with those guys, because then they're very, very hard to deal with. So you've got to control the opening gate and come out and get yourself in the right place, stay on schedule.
Rice Lake Warriors head football coach Dan Hill, best of luck against Menomonie.
Thank you much.
Yeah, and you think about all the different techniques he's got to have in his repertoire, right? All the arrows in his quiver, and he's got all of them here today.
I mean, medium well. Do you want it rare? Special orders, pickles, no pickles, ketchup, no ketchup.
You know, what we're seeing here, Paul, the spatula control is unreal.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where he's got absolutely no beef. He's just focused on doing his job. Yeah, I mean, without these cooks, everyone would just truly be fried.
Get more sales, more customers, more employees, more community support. Let Zaleski Sports help you today. Our advertising rates are less than what you have in your pocket now. People just like you watching this broadcast are your next customer or team member. Plus, you'll have the satisfaction of making sure that our light continues to shine on these student athletes. Use the phone in your hand. Email us now.
A nice controlled turn, and here comes the pontoon. What a boat.
I don't know that you can have a better activity today than the pontoon through this event. I said this is a world-class event. That was a world-class trailering of that pontoon right there.
Now we've got the green arrow, so now you got a little bit of a... Oh! U-turn! U-turn! Oh my goodness.
U-turn? You gotta be kidding me!
It's a broadcaster's dream because we're literally in the middle of a crossing pattern.